Just another thought here, self-observation of the psychosis. It's now almost 3 o'clock. It's 10 till 3. I had one more chapter left to finish reading, and then do a quiz or two, do some assignments. I would have had everything done before noon, if not for the involuntary exposure. I literally clock these things because I'm really strict about my time budget, very self-disciplined, very accurate down to the second. Unfortunately, people are scumbags, and so I had to endure involuntary exposure to secondhand marijuana smoke against my will and without my consent. Oh, these are fucking small. Anyway, and that led to a loss of time. So this is a repeated experience in my life since childhood, right? It's almost as if the weed junkies in this trailer park knew that I was doing good, that I was getting good grades. And just like Larry Lovato, my older brother, or Josh DeHaven and Nicolette St. Marie, all the weed junkies on Vashon, etc., their thinking is, oh, fuck, Gabe's doing good? He's going to get a job? He's getting good grades? He's doing successful? We can't let that happen. We can't let him rise up in income and do better for himself and improve his life and maybe get like a home and a family. We better fuck it up with weed. And so along comes the marijuana forced on me involuntarily against my will without my consent. It's like I'm jumping over a hurdle to rise up in life. The marijuana grabs me by the ankle and pulls me back down. No, you don't. We got to keep the poor poor. We got to keep you down. American society is not uplifting, it's down driving, and marijuana helps with that. Hence why it creates more poverty, right? The increase of homelessness and welfare dependence, etc., because of the increase in cannabis-induced psychosis. So this only makes me want a second Civil War and World War III, because I don't deserve this. And the people doing this aren't being regulated, aren't being controlled, and they're not self-regulating nor self-controlled. Any law enforcement, politician, government, marijuana lobbyist, or marijuana grower, marijuana dealer, marijuana user, etc., that sees these videos, they're not going to say, you know what, he's right. Let's stop. Let's voluntarily self-impose moral and ethical boundaries. No. They're going to say, fuck him. Good. Yeah. Let's do it more. Let's increase his suffering because it increases our profits. Let's not sacrifice profits just for people like this who are suffering because of us. Never gonna happen. Just got done working out. It's a little out of breath. Another aspect of all this is marijuana is applied eugenics. Not only does it keep the poor poor, it keeps people like me from rising up in income. What I don't get is I've already tried to weed myself out of the gene pool in 2008. In a cannabis-induced psychosis, I tried to kill myself. It's why I have amputations, third-degree burns over 40% of my body. Why didn't they just let me fucking die? Because right now, with this involuntary exposure event, which isn't the first time it's happened here, but it's been not so bad because the police, I think the police actually did something about that guy this time because, you know, they went inside and haven't seen him since, and some of their vehicles are gone now and the smell's gone away. So yeah, that helped. But the more this occurs, I'm thinking long term, this constant marijuana in my environment, in my surroundings, is going to cause more schizophrenia, which is going to cause failure at school, which is going to cause no career, which is going to guarantee my life will continue to either stay as shitty as it is or decline and get worse. When the whole point of this whole fucking thing, like attending university, was to get better, to improve things, to get a fucking job, etc. Why would the government, society, family, every fucking, circle I can name, why would they be against me improving my fucking life? Because they're so corrupt, they just can't admit that marijuana destroys lives? They just can't be honest? Okay. But then it makes me think of Bill Gates and the elites. Bill Gates is an example of it's not all the Jews, by the way. He's not Jewish. They're doing this to decrease the population. But this is very unfair. This is the consequence of their pathological altruism, is how it appears on the surface. The good people are being punished because the bad people weren't responsible. Let's contrast China and India. China was responsible. It did the one-child per family policy, etc., sterilization, things like that. So China is not suffering from overpopulation as much as it would be, and its carbon footprint has decreased. India had politicians, prime ministers with the same name as Mahatmas, right, the Gandhis, who did propose sterilization with rewards like monetary and whatnot. They were assassinated. Now India is thriving because they refuse to just be socially and ethically responsible. The same thing with blacks and whites. Blacks do not consider the long-term consequences of things like reproduction, unless they're like, culturally indoctrinated by whitey to just have some sort of moral and ethical responsibility for their choices, which took over a fucking century to somewhat sink in, right, on the surface for 10% of blacks, maybe 20, at least in America. But now my people, my Spanish Catholics and natives and all that in New Mexico are fucking suffering with African immigration and Arab immigration, etc., because all these other motherfuckers weren't responsible, weren't monogamous, didn't make morally correct choices. And so the people who were moral are suffering because the elites are like, oh, well, now you gotta lift up these people who are too shitty to fucking regulate their own behavior, so we're punishing you for doing the right thing and being responsible, right? And so from their perspective, when I apply myself to my perception of what their perspective would be, it makes sense. Reduce the population, marijuana helps, so does pornography and, fentanyl, methamphetamine, etc. But it's really fucked up and unfair to good people to be punished and suffer because of evil people, of greed, corruption, and so forth and so on. All you had to do was cut Africa off of white aid. Right? There's been over $70 trillion as of 2018 that have been pumped into Africa without a single dollar positive return. And that's aid. That isn't finance. That isn't business. That's just aid. Famine prevention. Things like that. They've had quite a few famine preventions because they can't grow their own fucking food. Why not? Oh, it's Whitey's fault. See, we came out of Africa 70 million years ago, so blacks had millions of fucking years ahead of literally everyone else. Literally the Europeans, the Asians, the Americas, etc. And they didn't fucking invent the wheel, wells, irrigation, agriculture. No, purely hunter-gatherer, no writing system. No houses above one story. I mean, there are some exceptions in parts of Northern Africa, like I think it was the Nubian Empire and that king in Malawi, which was a moron. This is an example of a dumb black. He gave all his gold away. Why would you give your gold away? Oh, yeah, that's a fucking smart idea. Now we're below the poverty line. Maybe you shouldn't have given all your gold away. Shut up, racist. Yeah. But yeah, no. So it's really fucked up because people like me that are trying to do the right thing and the morally responsible and do good and all that, we are being fucked over for people who don't do the right thing, for people who smoke marijuana and fucking have sex outside of marriage and have kids they can't afford to pay for, etc., etc., etc. What the fuck? So that's another funny observation. With that giant pit bull there, Ganja is his dog's name. The parents walk him on a leash now, but I don't really think their sons do. I think they have two sons, and they're. I mean, as far as I know, because I don't communicate with them. I'm only interpreting, observations of displayed behavior. So I don't know this 100% accurately. I'm just what I observe. And what I observe is that the sons aren't as responsible as their parents in terms of dog and all kinds of other stuff. And I can only assume with a fair degree of certainty that the parents are children of the 60s. And so they, likely were marijuana smokers. And this led to them being shitty parents and having shitty kids. But, the other night, I saw that same dog off the leash, and I think they're trying to build the verbal leash that they saw me display, because my dog went up to say hi to that dog, and I've worked on this verbal leash for a long time. Excuse me, I just got out of the shower. I'm gonna brush my hair. Grow it out in the winter for warmth. But yeah, so the dog ran off this morning because it's getting mixed training signals from the older generation and the younger generation. The older generation is being responsible, trying to train the dog to stay on the leash. But the younger brothers are like, weed makes us shitty, man. And because the marijuana makes us shitty people, we're shitty dog owners because of the weed, man. So, fuck the leash laws, man. Fuck that guy. Fuck the government. Weed's fine. Pit bulls are harmless, bro. It's not the breed, it's the owner, man. And all I have to do is Google pit bull killed child. Get so many results. And that's hilarious to me, because that's just an Americanism, right? That Americans are so stupid and emotional and shitty that they'd rather let kids get mauled by muscular dogs with lockjaw than be racist to the dogs, be mean. Speciest? Breedist? I'm a breedist. This is breedism. Discrimination on the basis of breed. Breed discrimination. Yeah, no, I'd rather not give a fuck about the dog's feelings than let kids get mauled. On that Gore website, a girl got the skin ripped off her face by a pit bull. The guy was petting a pit bull and it bit his fucking lip off. Dude, the guy wasn't even doing anything wrong. Just petting him. Didn't do anything aggressive, didn't show any signs of aggression. The pit bull said, fuck that, man. Marijuana makes reality not real, man. Right? So the weed turns their brain to dog shit, and therefore it turns their behavior into dog shit. And the parents, this is their fault. This is the downstream consequences of their shitty parenting by allowing their sons to smoke marijuana, which undoubtedly led to other drugs, like methamphetamine, etc. They're the basis of my latest current observation that repeats itself throughout my life. Where there's marijuana, there's meth, or fentanyl, etc. So, I try to find universally applicable dynamics in these models that apply to various structures. Like, what applies to the white conservative, I think, but at least the white family structure can apply to the Hispanic family structure and the black family structure. There are cultural differences in those family structures based on genetics, like the black single-parent household rate, incarceration rate, etc. And I'm not being mean, that's just honest. So when I see their dynamics, I think, well, at least the parents stayed together. My parents divorced before I was a year old, and if it wasn't for the parents, that son wouldn't have his house, he wouldn't have a place for his children, right? He's recently had a baby, and he's got another one on the way. So his parents are having to work extra fucking hard because they raised a shitty kid because of the marijuana. Children of the 60s. Downstream consequences of the drug and sex revolution. This is whitey without Christianity, but I think they are Christian because they have Christmas decorations. And like, how common is that, right? How many people who watch this video will think of white families with Christmas decorations who have domestic violence, drugs, alcohol, and all kinds of fucked up shit? But they got the inflatable snowman and Santa in the front lawn. It's funny for me. It really is, because so many Christians are like this, right? Like, yeah, we're pieces of shit. We believe in Jesus, so free pass, free pass to just be as shitty as possible forever. Get out of jail free card. Thank you, Jesus. It cracks me up. And yeah, so if there is a genetic superiority to white people, then why is it that white people like this are arguably just as bad, if not worse, than blacks? Better in some ways, are better at, producing income and generating wealth and food, etc. But it seems like they have higher rates of drug use. Whites do, poor whites especially, trailer trash, than blacks do. I could be wrong. I probably am. Oh, sorry. Because I stay on top of things like schizophrenia per ethnicity rates, especially because of my condition, as well as countries with the highest rates of schizophrenia. So when I first Googled these things in 2016, Hispanics had the highest schizophrenia rate per ethnicity, and Indonesia had the highest schizophrenia rate per country. And I assume that was because there's a lot of inbreeding on an island that doesn't maintain a lot of, global trade. So there's not a lot of admixture. Admixture comes with economics. Global trade means race mixing, multiculturalism, ethnic diversity, etc. And Hispanics, just like Arabs and so many other people, inbreeding is the way many of these poor families survive. Just like families in Tibet and things like that, right? Nepal, etc. So when I Googled these things recently, blacks now have the highest rates of schizophrenia per ethnicity. And that's really odd, because that means that blacks need the laws for their own good. Especially the prohibition of marijuana laws, which is really funny to me because it's karma, right? All these politicians who pushed legalization because marijuana laws are racist, turns out the laws were actually good for the blacks and saving them from themselves. Specifically from their marijuana use. And so, yeah, even though they lied and masked their greed with altruism, they try to push it like, oh yeah, the marijuana laws are racist, man. You're like a KKK Nazi to oppose weed, which is weird, because then I get white supremacists who tell me that I'm a Jew for opposing weed, but then I get people who tell me I'm a white supremacist for opposing weed. If only people could try to not be so full of shit all the time. Like, just fuck. It's insane. But yeah, so this means that blacks, despite being disproportionately overrepresented in shows like Cops and A&E's, that version of Cops, I can't remember what it's called right now. The one that was canceled, and then they put it back on because there was constantly blacks with weed committing robberies and felonies, etc. And it was always like those two things, right? Black male suspect, marijuana possession. I remember one on the A&E ride-along show where there's a bunch of black guys growing marijuana in a house, and they had pit bulls, and they had not fed the dogs in a very long time because they self-induce cognitive impairment, and this cognitive suppression, this self-induced severe mental handicap through their marijuana addiction, it causes a lack of object permanence. They literally forget the dog exists outside. They forget to feed it for clearly prolonged periods of time, because those dogs were not intimidating despite being pit bulls. They were skeletons. You could see their ribs through their skin and things like that. It was pretty fucked up. But those guys grew a lot of weed, man. Shit. So it's interesting to me, because if the schizophrenia rates now are higher than they were before legalization, this means that despite being disproportionately overrepresented in, drug arrests, etc., blacks are actually following the law more than Hispanics. And now with legalization, blacks are doing more marijuana than Hispanics. That's why they have more schizophrenia and homelessness. Google homelessness per ethnicity. Now that I made this video, whoever runs Google Didn't name an ethnicity or religion. Whoever runs Google, just leaving it open. You can draw your own inferences. They might change those results, but African Americans, highest rates of schizophrenia, highest rates of homelessness, highest rates of pornography consumption per ethnicity. Those reflect a genetic trait that is also related to the disproportionate overrepresentation in incarceration population, etc. And HIV per ethnicity, etc.